Hello, welcome to another edition of Crop Life Retail Week. I'm Eric Sfiligoj, editor, Crop Life Iron, here back in studio with my friend Laura Sowinski. Laura, welcome me back.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm laughing because when I did the guest hosting last week with my terrific guest Aaron Hightower from RDO Equipment, I started talking and I was thinking, I don't really have the spiel down that Eric does every time, formally announces. I just kind of dived into it and dived out at the end, but it was a blast. But glad to be back with you. So.
Yeah, no, I've done videos without you and without other co-hosts in the past, and it's just like trying to talk for that long by yourself with no one to sort of bounce ideas off of and sort of you exhale, take a breath. It gets a little difficult. So yes, this is
Different.
much better. So
Yeah.
yes, I'm glad to be back. I had a wonderful trip next week. I can't talk about it yet, but I will share the details in a couple of videos about what I learned, what I found out when I was on my adventure last week when you had to
Awesome.
run solo.
Yeah.
So hey, I guess we will theme this edition of Crop Life Week Retail Week something under the heading of pending. We have a bunch of stuff that is pending in the marketplace. We're going to be talking about news wise. First and foremost, of course, consolidation in the ag retail space. Earlier this year, we had two Indiana cooperatives, Series Solutions and Co-Alliance, formally merged, and as of March 1st, they are now known as Keystone Cooperative. And
Hmm.
as we stated at that time, and they were both ranked in the teens in our Crop Life 100. So combined, they're now probably in the top eight in the over $1 billion club of
Hmm.
companies that are the in the Crop Life 100. And this week we found out another merger is in the offing. There was a letter of intent to merge signed between our friends at CHS, which was number 6 on the 2023 Crop Life 100 with more $1 billion sales, with West Central Ag Services, which was number 31. Sales range between 151 million and 200 million in 2023. So those two cooperatives are both based in Minnesota, and like I said, they've signed a letter of intent, and they're hopeful that if the membership votes in the affirmative, that the formal merger will take place later this year. So we'll have to keep
Yeah.
an eye on that.
Yeah. Big news.
Yeah, that could be. And also pending, of course, one thing that we've been talking about a lot since September 2023, when it formally expired, of course, is the Farm Bill. Every 5 years, you're supposed to get a new Farm Bill. But in a Congress like we've had this past year or so, that there hasn't been a lot of movement on the Farm Bill, and most of the programs that run under the 2023 expiring Farm Bill were simply extended without a new Farm Bill in place. But I'm happy to report that the U.S. House Agricultural Committee has now passed in committee a $1.5 trillion Farm Bill legislation that passed about a week ago, and it now goes to, I guess, the Senate committee to
Mhm.
talk, to vote on. The bill increases the farm safety net payments for some commodity crops, expands eligibility for disaster assistance, and increases funding for specialty crops. So,
Mhm.
and again, everything I've read indicates that the Farm Bill is what most of the legislature consider must-pass legislation, because again, it's
Mhm. Mhm.
it's the U.S. food supply we're talking about here.
Right.
So
Right.
again, hopefully now that this has made it through one committee, it'll get through the rest pretty quickly and then go to the full Congress for a vote. And fingers crossed, maybe by fall of this year, a year late, we will finally see a new farm bill in place for our friends in agriculture.
Yeah. Really encouraging to see some positive movement on that front, getting that bill ushered through the House and Senate both. Hopefully, yeah. Yeah, I've been kind of following it, minor adjustments here and there, and where the snags are and why and how they're working that out. But yeah, really good news, good item.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, having covered this marketplace for almost 25 years, I know farm bill passages used to be, was almost a no-brainer. I mean, when
Right.
they got ready to expire, they'd get together, they'd hammer out a new agreement, and usually we had something in place before the expiration date appeared. But
Mm-hmm.
last two farm bills have been a little different. But again, it's a different congressional world than it used to be back in the early 2000s. So.
Yep, indeed.
So, hey, these were two things that I have under my pending heading, but I guess you have something to talk about when pending wise on the supply chain side. So I'll toss it over to you.
Yeah, it's funny because that really sums up the theme of today's news, I guess. A couple things. Port of Baltimore has slightly postponed the full opening of the channels. You know, we recall the Key Bridge collapse that disrupted shipping at the Port of Baltimore. Some vessels are getting through. There's still one piece of the bridge, however, that does need to be cleared from the channel. So now they're looking at June 8th, maybe the 10th, for the channel to be completely opened. Um, but in part because of the collapse of the Key Bridge, um, a team from the Johns Hopkins Whiting School of Engineering is embarking on a nationwide investigation and study of uh, bridges at key gateways, ports, to evaluate their safety and what needs to be done. One of the engineers, and this is reporting out of the maritimeexecutive.com publication, was quoted as saying the U.S. has seen 17 incidents of major bridge collapse between 1960 and 2011, averaging one every 3 years. Between the exponential growth of mega freight ships and surge in global shipping traffic, many of our bridges simply weren't built to withstand the pressures of today's maritime landscape. So, yeah, I think that's the big thing. I mean, not only the volume, but certainly the size of the vessels these days. So, so good news on that front. Small delay. The other pending news, if you will. Um, Contract negotiations between longshoremen on the U.S. East Coast and Gulf Coast are underway. The current contract expires on the 30th of September, so waterfront employers and longshoremen are hoping to hammer out details for a new 6 year contract, and hopefully everything goes smoothly so we don't see any work stoppages or whatever. But um, pending successful contract negotiations on that front as well. But aside from that, yeah, just real quick update. Tech Hub Live program, we are just man, everything is coming together really nicely. Just an excellent, it almost, I hesitate to say, every year bigger and better, but indeed, this event, because it is fairly new, fourth year, um, we are still in I would say, an aggressive growth mode. I mean, the program is bigger, more speakers. I think I mentioned recently that on Wednesday, the 31st of July, which is the last day of Tech Hub Live, we've added two workshops at the end. Really, really timely topics, one on drones, the other on biologicals as they pertain to row crops. So, techhublive.com. Check it out. Awesome program. We have a lot going on. Women in Ag Tech, as I've mentioned before, starts on Monday, July 29th. We have a full program on that day. Wendy Cernick from Corteva will be our keynote speaker on Monday morning. We kick off at 10 on the 29th for Women in Ag Tech and conclude at 5, and then we start the welcome party. Everyone likes a welcome party, right?
Oh yeah.
And then we conclude on Wednesday, the 31st. So check that out. And for women who are part of the Women in AgTech community, or if you're not, check out womeninagtech.com. On Monday, June 3rd, my guest for a webinar will be Kim Nicholson of the Mosaic Company. We'll be talking about diversity and inclusion programs, mentorship programs, ESG. The Mosaic Company is just fantastic supporters of diversity and inclusion, and equally important, they truly have demonstrated how embracing diversity and inclusion is good for business. So we'll be talking about that. So womeninagtech.com, check that out. And check out the LinkedIn group page as well. So that's my news on the pending front.
Interesting. Well, hey,
Yeah.
that's great to hear that we got everything going on. The planning for, of course, Tech Hub Live coming up at the end of July. But I got to go back to your bridge comment,
Mm,
where you said that it's averaging one bridge impacted or hit once every 3 years. I think you said.
that's
And
right.
I have my son is now 16, so he's learning to drive. So of course, part of that is the maneuverability part, where they try to maneuver through the orange cones in parking lot. And I was thinking, his rate of hitting the cones is about 1 in 3 every time he tries backing up. So maybe I don't know. Maybe the ship drivers need a little more maneuverability training, perhaps. That's all that popped into my head. So I'm like, because God knows he's getting better, but it's still probably 1 in 3 cones that get smashed with the car tire. So,
Your poor son. I mean, if it's not about him raking leaves, it's about him hitting the cones. So
there's
he's
more to
going to get
come. Of
you one of
course, he's
these
my
days.
son. I get to pick on him mercilessly because I'm his
You
dad,
do.
and he
I,
will pay me back eventually by putting me in a nursing home that probably doesn't refrigerate its medicine. But we will see how that goes in a few years. So, hey, everything we
oh,
talked about, of course, in this video, we under the heading of pending, but something
yeah.
more definitive is what's going to happen now. You, Miss Laura, get to play fun with
Oh
numbers.
boy. It was really fun last week when I when I didn't have to guess A, B, or C.
Yes, yes, but no, I'm putting you back in the hot seat. So this week, your number is 523 million.
Okay.
All right, and this is dollars, $523 million.
Okay.
So, is $523 million, is that A, the amount lost from hail damage to crops in 2023? Is it B, the amount lost from wind damage to crops in 2023? Is it C, the amount lost from flood damage to crops in 2023? Or is it D, the amount of grant money I anticipate my son will need to afford college when he goes after 2 more years of high school? And again, he's at the end of school, so now he's going to be a junior. He's starting to think college, and I'm thinking 523 million in grants that might cover 4 year education. We'll see.
Or that could just be gas money, for this.
Or dorm money. Who knows? We'll see.
Oh
So,
goodness.
so what do you? So this, like I say, this week your
Oh, wind.
choices are hail, wind, or flood. So
Yeah. I'm going with B, wind.
wind. That's a good choice because again, what motivated me to get this as a question was, of course, all the weather news that we've had over the past week or so with wind damage and storm damage across the Midwest. But no, I'm sorry to say the correct answer is A.
Oh,
$523 million is what
yeah.
estimated crop
Darn.
losses from hail damage that the farmers in the U.S. suffered during last year's growing season. So
Yeah. Gosh, that's really, yeah, that's
I know
significant.
I
Whew.
was amazed at how high that figure was. I mean,
Yeah.
half, $500 million in hail. So
Mhm.
and again, I mean, here in Ohio, we get a few hail events, but They're
Yeah.
usually not that nasty, but I guess in some other
Yeah.
parts of the country, I've heard about the golf ball or tennis ball
Mhm.
sized hail, and
Yeah.
I imagine that is no fun for crops in the field. So
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah. No, actually, I was thinking, I didn't think it was flood, but I was kind of torn between the two. And, but yeah, no, whatever way you cut it, what was wind?
I
Do you know?
didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
All I had was the hail damage
That's
figure. I didn't
significant.
look up
Yeah.
the other two. So,
Yeah. Okay.
um, but
Alrighty. It's a
all
lot.
right. Well, everyone, thanks for welcoming us back, myself and Laura Sowinski as a team. We hope you enjoyed this edition of Crop Life Retail Week. On behalf of myself and everyone here at the Crop Life Media Group, we will see you again next week.
If you have questions or comments about today's episode of Retail Week, contact us by email or Twitter, or type your message in the comments section below. Your feedback is important to us. We will try our best to address your thoughts in next week's episode, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel.